Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. And this time, we are going to be exploring The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. And honestly, this one really stuck up on me in a good way.
Mhm.
It's one of those books that you kind of start reading and you think, oh, this is going to be, kind of a light read, maybe a little bit of a beach read, and then all of a sudden these like really profound ideas start to emerge and these sort of like unexpected twists and turns, and it's like you getting this really insightful email from your, favorite wise aunt who's just decided to spill all the tea about her life-changing trip to Ibiza. So today we're going to try to unpack some of those layers and figure out, what exactly makes Grace's story so captivating and what we can learn from her journey.
Yeah, and I think what's so fascinating about The Life Impossible is that, it takes this familiar setup of like a late in life awakening or, a second chance kind of story, but then it layers it with these really unexpected twists. You're drawn in by this seemingly ordinary woman, a 72-year-old widow named Grace, and then suddenly you're tumbling down this rabbit hole of like sci-fi concepts and questions about the nature of reality. It's really quite a ride.
Right. And when we first meet Grace, she is really drowning in grief and regret. She's convinced that it's too late to change anything, which is a feeling I think, so many of us can relate to no matter what age we're at. But then she inherits this house in Ibiza.
And it's not just any inheritance, though. It's almost like this portal to a new dimension, both literally and figuratively. It throws her out of her comfort zone and forces her to confront all these ghosts of her past.
And those ghosts aren't just metaphorical either. Haig really plays with the boundaries of reality, blending the ordinary with the extraordinary. So one minute Grace is grappling with the, the complexities of her family, and the next she's like contemplating the existence of parallel universes. It's kind of wild.
It is. And that's where I think Haig's skill as a writer really comes through. He could have so easily gotten lost in like the fantastical elements, but he keeps the story grounded in Grace's emotional journey. It's her growth and her transformation that really anchors the narrative, even when things get a little bit out there.
Absolutely. It's never really about the spaceships or the aliens. It's about what those elements represent, like the unknown, the possibility of something more. And that ties directly back into Grace's internal struggles. She spent so much of her life playing it safe, living with regret. And now she's forced to confront the biggest what if of all. What if there's more to life than she ever imagined?
And Haig doesn't shy away from the messiness of grief and healing either. Grace's journey isn't this like straight line from sadness to sunshine. She stumbles, she questions, she even gets angry at times. It's that raw honesty, I think, that makes her so relatable.
Yeah, and that's where I think the setting becomes really important too, because Ibiza itself almost becomes like a character in the story.
Absolutely. It's more than just a pretty backdrop. Ibiza is a place of like contrasts.
Yeah.
You have the vibrant nightlife and the tranquil beaches, ancient history, and then modern tourism. It's this place where people go to escape reality, but also to find themselves. It's really like a mirror reflecting Grace's own internal conflict.
It's almost as if the island embodies that duality of her journey, right? Like the desire for escape, but also the need for introspection. She goes there looking for a change of scenery, but what she ends up finding is a deeper understanding of herself.
Yeah, and that's such a key takeaway. Sometimes the most profound transformations happen when we step outside of our comfort zones, when we allow ourselves to be challenged and surprised by the unexpected.
And that's just the beginning of Grace's story. We haven't even touched on the complexities of her family dynamics, the secrets that she uncovers, or the profound impact that her journey has on those around her.
Exactly. The Life Impossible packs so much into this seemingly simple narrative. It's a story about second chances, about the power of forgiveness, and ultimately about embracing the unknown.
And we're just getting started with our deep dive.
Yeah.
So let's unpack some of these themes even further and see what else we can uncover about Grace, her journey, and the really magical world that Haig creates.
One thing that really stood out to me in Life Impossible is how Haig handles the theme of family. Like, it's not just, a background to Grace's journey. It's like woven into the fabric of who she is and all of her struggles.
Oh, yeah, totally. The relationships in this book are so complex and nuanced. Like we see Grace grappling with the guilt and resentment she feels towards her late husband, this strained bond with her daughter, and then this unexpected connection she forms with her granddaughter. It's messy and real and just incredibly moving.
And it's interesting how Haig uses that email format to slowly reveal these layers of family history. We get glimpses of Grace's past through her words, her memories, and the way she interacts with people she meets in Ibiza. It's like piecing together this puzzle, and each email brings us closer to understanding the woman she is today.
It really does. And that's where I think his choice of narrative structure is so effective. The email format creates this really intimate connection between Grace and the reader.
Yeah.
Like you feel like you're eavesdropping on her most personal thoughts and feelings. It's almost confessional.
It is, and it allows for a vulnerability that I don't think would have been possible in a traditional third-person narrative. We see Grace at her most raw and honest, wrestling with her doubts, her fears, and insecurities.
You mentioned the granddaughter earlier.
Uh-huh.
And I think that relationship between Grace and her granddaughter is one of the most heartwarming parts of the story. There's this beautiful intergenerational connection that develops this sense of understanding and acceptance that transcends age and life experience.
It's a good reminder that even, in our later years, we can still form these meaningful connections and find a sense of belonging. And for Grace, who has been so isolated in her grief, this relationship with her granddaughter is like a lifeline. It brings joy and laughter back into her life.
And it also forces her to confront some of her own prejudices and assumptions about younger generations.
Yeah.
Right? Like Grace initially kind of dismisses her granddaughter as frivolous and self-absorbed.
Yeah.
But as she gets to know her better, she realizes that there's so much more depth and complexity there than she initially perceived.
Exactly. It's a beautiful example of how human connection can really challenge our perspectives and open our hearts to new possibilities, and it highlights the importance of, listening to and learning from those who are different from us, no matter their age or background.
And speaking of challenging perspectives, let's maybe circle back to the sci-fi element that we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like a random plot device. It's so deeply intertwined with Grace's emotional and spiritual journey.
Right. It's like those fantastical elements serve as this metaphor for the unknown, for the possibilities that lie beyond our limited perception of reality. And Grace, who's always been such a pragmatist, is forced to confront the possibility that there might be more to life than meets the eye.
It's like the universe is conspiring to push her out of her comfort zone, to kind of shake up her belief system and open her mind to new ways of thinking.
And it's not always a comfortable process. She struggles with the concepts that are presented to her. She questions their validity, grapples with their implications. She even gets angry at times. But ultimately, this confrontation with the unknown leads to this really profound shift in her worldview.
Yeah, it's like she's shedding these old layers of herself, breaking free from the limitations she's placed on herself, and embracing the possibility of something bigger, something more magical than she ever dared to dream.
And that's where the setting of Ibiza comes back into play, too. The island itself is so steeped in myth and legend. It's a place where the boundaries between reality and fantasy are blurred. It's almost as if Ibiza is like this conduit for the extraordinary, a place where the impossible becomes possible.
And what's really fascinating is how Haig weaves the history and culture of Ibiza into the narrative. Like he doesn't just use it as a picturesque backdrop. He really delves into its rich past.
Yeah.
Exploring its ancient roots and the impact of various civilizations on its identity.
It's like the island has a story to tell, and Grace is just one chapter in this long and winding tale. And through her interactions with the island and its people, she starts to understand that her own journey is part of this much larger tapestry of human experience.
It's a beautiful way of connecting the personal with the universal, the individual with the collective. And it's a reminder that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves, this grand narrative that's been unfolding for centuries.
And just as Ibiza has transformed over time, embracing new cultures, adapting to changing circumstances, so too does Grace undergo this profound metamorphosis during her time on the island. She sheds the weight of her past, confronts her fears, and emerges as a stronger, more resilient version of herself.
And that transformation isn't just about letting go of grief or embracing new possibilities. It's also about forgiveness, both of herself and of others.
You're right, forgiveness is like this central theme in The Life Impossible. Grace has been carrying so much guilt and resentment for years, and it's only through the process of confronting those emotions and choosing to let go that she's able to truly heal and move forward.
It's a really powerful message, and it speaks to the human capacity for growth and change, even when we're facing adversity.
And it's a message that resonates really deeply, especially in a world that often feels divided and fractured. Haig reminds us that we all have the power to choose love over hate, forgiveness over bitterness, and hope over despair.
As we've been talking about The Life Impossible, I keep going back to how Haig uses those fantastical elements to almost like mirror real-world issues. It's not just escapism. It's like a way of commenting on our relationship with the planet, with technology, with even like the very nature of reality itself.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's this subtle but really powerful undercurrent of social commentary running through the whole novel. He touches on the impact of tourism on Ibiza, the allure and danger of escapism, and even like the existential threat posed by climate change.
It's like he's using those sci-fi elements to hold up this mirror to our own society and force us to confront some of those uncomfortable truths about the choices we're making in the direction we're headed.
And he does it in a way that's both thought-provoking and entertaining, right? Like you're drawn in by the mystery, the humor, the sheer inventiveness of the story, and then bam, you're suddenly grappling with these huge, complex ideas.
It's a really clever way of engaging readers with issues that might otherwise feel overwhelming or preachy, you know? By weaving them into this compelling narrative, he makes them relatable and accessible. He invites us to think differently, to question our assumptions, and to consider alternative perspectives.
And I think that's ultimately what makes The Life Impossible such a powerful and enduring story. It's not just about Grace's journey, it's about our own.
Yeah,
It's about the choices we make, the connections we forge, and the legacy we leave behind.
it's a good reminder that we all have the power to shape our own destinies, to write our own stories, even when life throws us those curveballs. And sometimes, those most unexpected detours can lead us to the most extraordinary destinations.
Exactly. And it's never too late to start over, to embrace new possibilities, and to create a life that's truly filled with meaning and purpose, just like Grace. We all have the potential to transform ourselves and the world around us.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into The Life Impossible, I want to leave you with this question. What impossible dream are you holding on to? What's that one thing you've always wanted to do, but convinced yourself it was too late, too risky, or just plain impossible?
It's a question worth thinking about, because maybe, just maybe, the only thing that's standing between you and that impossible dream is the belief that it's actually impossible.